Hello there. I hope all you are feeling good and you are ready to have a good and joyful mathematics session. In this session, we are going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. And we are going to solve quadratic equations from the type of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, in which a, the leading coefficient, is not equal to 1. To solve this type of quadratic equations using sum and product method, we have to do some changes on this equation to be solved by sum and product method. To explain what are those changes, I'm going to some examples, and on those examples use those changes and solve the equation by sum and product method. Look at this example. Example, solve. As first example, I'm going to write equation of 2x squared plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. As you see, guys, in this equation, the leader coefficient, I mean this number, is not equal to 1. And I'm going to solve this one by sum and product method. First, I'm going to do some changes on this equation. I'm going to multiply all terms of this equation by the leading coefficient, I mean 2. If you multiply the first term by the leading coefficient, you can have 4x squared. But this 4x squared can be written as 2x whole to the power of 2 plus. If you multiply the second term, this one, by 2x, that will be 14x. But this 14x is better to be written in form of 7 times 2x, because I'm going to have inside of this parenthesis here 2. Plus, multiplying the third term by the leading coefficient will result in 12 equals 0. By multiplying all terms by 2, I've made the quadratic term a perfect square term, and this will help us to be able to use sum and product. At this step, open two parentheses and put their product equal to 0. Inside each of these parentheses, put a square root of this term, this quadratic term. Square root of this term will be 2x, a 2x in the first parentheses and a 2x into the second parentheses. Now, this number, I mean 12, stands for product, and this number, 7, stands for sum. You should find two numbers. Their product is 12 and their sum is 7. If you can guess those numbers, that will be too much better. If you can't guess, you should say, since the product is positive and the sum is positive, both of them are positive numbers, then this 7 is starting from the smallest positive integer, I mean 1, can be written in form of 1 plus 6, but 1 times 6 doesn't make 12. This option doesn't work. The next option can be 2 plus 5. This doesn't work too. And the third option, 3 plus 4, this option works. Then here we can have plus 3 and plus 4. Now, using zero product property, you can have the first factor equals 0 or the second factor equals 0. As you see, this quadratic equation has separated to two simple linear equations. Now we continue solving these linear equations. 2x would be equal to negative 3. I brought this constant to the right side, and then dividing both sides by 2 will result in x equals negative 3 over 2. This is the first solution. We followed the same procedure on the second part, second branch. 2x would be equal to negative 4. Therefore, dividing both sides by 2 will result in x equals negative 4 over 2, which is simplifiable to negative 2. And I solved this equation using sum and product method, but first I did some changes on the equation. As the second example, I'm going to write this equation. Number 2, 3x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. Before starting to do some changes on this equation, guys, when our linear term, I mean negative x, as you see in here, this negative, in fact, is negative 1. Then coefficient of this one is negative 1. Keep it in your mind, please. Now, let us do the changes, which is essential here. As you see, the leading coefficient, I mean this 3, is not 1. Then, first of all, I should multiply all terms by 3. If you multiply this one by 3, this will turn to 9x squared, which can be written as 3x whole to the power of 2. And multiplying this one by 3 will result in negative 1. Negative 1 is the coefficient of x here. Negative 1 times parentheses 3x minus 6 equals 0. Now I have a quadratic equation in which the quadratic term is a perfect square term. At this step, you can open two parentheses and put their multiplication equal to 0. Inside each of these parentheses, you should put square root of this quadratic term. The square root of this quadratic term is 3x. A 3x here and another 3x here. Now, this negative 6 stands for product, and this negative 1 stands for sum. Since product is negative, the numbers we are looking for them are positive and negative. And since their sum is negative 1, then this negative 1 should be written as a negative number. The negative number before negative 2, the negative integer number before negative 1 is negative 2, and plus 1. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. But multiplication of these two doesn't make negative 6. Go to the next option, negative 3 plus 2. This option is acceptable because negative 3 times 2 makes negative 6. Then here we can have negative 3 and here we can have positive 2. Now using zero product property, we can have 3x minus 3 equals 0 or 3x plus 2 equals 0. As you see, that this quadratic equation, I mean this one, has separated to these linear equations and they are solvable. I'm keeping 3x in the left and move negative 3 to the other side, which will turn to positive 3. Dividing both sides by 3 will result in 3 over 3, which is 1. And I'm doing the next equation. On the next one, I will follow the same procedure. 3x equals to negative 2. Then dividing both sides by 3 will result in x equals negative 2 over 3. And we got the solutions. Let me write one more example, guys. Example number 3. In this example, guys, we have a quadratic equation in which not only the leading coefficient is not 1, but also the leading coefficient is a negative number. To do this one, you can do changes in two different methods. The first method is multiplying all the terms by negative 5. The main leading coefficient, I mean this number. If you multiply the terms by negative 5, you can have negative 5x whole to the power of 2 plus 3 times negative 5x minus negative 5 times 8 makes negative 40, which is equal to 0. As you see, now I have a quadratic equation for that. The leading term, or let me say the quadratic term, is a perfect square term. At this step, you can open two parentheses and put their multiplication equal to 0. In each of these parentheses, you can put square root of this term. The square root of this term is negative 5x. A negative 5x in the first parenthesis and another negative 5x into the second parenthesis. This negative 4 stands for product and this 3 stands for sum. Since product is negative, the two numbers we are looking for them will be positive and negative. One positive, the other negative. And since their sum is positive, this sum should be written as a positive number and a negative number, sum of a positive and negative number. The positive integer exactly after 3 is 4 plus and negative number can be 1. But these two numbers are not acceptable because product of these two doesn't make negative 40. This is unacceptable. The next option can be 5 plus negative 2. This one is unacceptable too. The third option can be 6 plus negative 3. This one is unacceptable too. And 7 plus negative 4. This one is unacceptable again. And finally, 8 plus negative 5. This option or these two numbers are acceptable. Therefore, in the first parenthesis, you can put positive 8, in the second one, negative 5. Now, since product of two factors equals 0, using zero product property, you can find negative 5x plus 8 equals 0 for the first time, or negative 5x minus 5 equals 0. Solving the first linear equation will result in negative 5x equals negative 8, and dividing both sides by negative 5 will give us x equals negative 8 over negative 5, and simplifying this fraction gives us 8 over 5. And I'm going to do the second linear equation. Negative 5x will be equal to 5. Dividing both sides by negative 5, listen, dividing both sides by negative 5 will result in x equals 5 over negative 5, and the simplified form of this fraction is negative 1. These are the solutions. Okay, at this step, you will ask me, what is the second method? You mentioned that already. Yeah, if you want to follow the second method, first of all, factor out of negative in all terms, factor out of negative in all terms, then you can have negative 5x squared minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. From here, you can conclude, therefore, 5x squared minus 3 times x minus 8 equals 0. Then follow the same changes we did here. Multiply all the terms by 5. You can have 5x squared minus 3 times 5x minus 40 equals 0. This time you have a quadratic equation in which the quadratic term, I mean here, is a perfect square term. Then you can open two parentheses, and inside each of these parentheses you can put a 5x square root of this one, 5x here and 5x here. This number is the product and this number is the sum. The numbers which are satisfying in these two conditions, their product is negative 40 and their sum is negative 3, are negative 8 and positive 5. Now, using zero product property, you can have once 5x minus 8 equals 0. The other time, 5x plus 5 equals 0. Doing the first one will result in 5x equals 8 and dividing both sides by 5 will give us x equals 8 over 5. And solving the second linear equation will result in 5x equals negative 5. And finally, x will be negative 5 over 5, which would be negative 1. And as you see, I did this equation by two different methods. They are not, in fact, different methods. The procedure has changed a little. And as you see, we reached to the same solutions. Sometimes, apparently, our equation is not in quadratic form, but after some simplifications, it will change to a quadratic equation. For example, look at this example. Number 4, parentheses 2x minus 3 times x plus 2 equals 4. As you see, this equation is not in standard form. Then, to turn this one to the standard form, first of all, we should get rid of these parentheses by multiplying parentheses to each other, this by this, then this by this, and this term by this one, and by this one. This will result in 2x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 6 equals to 4. Now, move all the terms to the left side and simplify them. If you move them to the left and simplify, the quadratic term will be 2x squared. These two, 4x and negative 3x are like, and if you add them up, you will reach to x or 1x. And if you move this 4, this constant to the left, by this negative 6 will give us negative 10 equals 0. And as you see in this equation, the leading coefficient, this number, is not 1. Therefore, to be able to solve this equation by sum and product method, I have to multiply all terms by the leading coefficient, 2. If we multiply all terms by 2, we can reach to 2x whole squared plus, as you see guys, this is x. That means coefficient of this is 1. Therefore, plus 1 times 2x minus 20 equals 0. And at this step, you can claim we have a quadratic equation in which the quadratic term, this term, is a perfect square term and it has a square root. Then at this step, you can open two parentheses and put their multiplication equals 0. Inside each of these parentheses, you can put square root of this term. Square root of that term is 2x. A 2x here, another 2x here. Now, look for two numbers. Their product is negative 20 and their sum is 1. Since product is negative, one of the numbers is negative and the other is positive. And since their sum is 1, this one should be written as a positive integer and a negative integer. The positive integer after 1 is 2. Then we can have 2 plus negative 1. This option is not acceptable. The next option is 3 plus negative 2. This one is not acceptable again. The next option is 4 plus negative 3. Again, is not acceptable. And the fourth option is 5 plus negative 4. Fortunately, this one is acceptable. Then we can put a 5 here and a negative 4 here. Now, using the zero product property, you can claim we have 2x plus 1 equals 0, or we can have 2x minus 4 equals 0. Solving the first linear equation will result in 2x equals negative 5, and that will give us, dividing both sides by 2, x equals to negative 5 over 2. And I am doing the same procedure to the second linear equation. 2x will be equal to 4. I brought this negative 4 to the right. It changed to the positive form. Dividing both sides by 2 will result in x equals 4 over 2, and this can be simplified to 2. Okay, and we did this equation. Guys, sometimes the equation's appearance is so, we will think at first that is not a quadratic equation. For example, look at this equation. I think this is number 5. Yes, number 5. 2x plus 1 over x plus 1 equals to 5 over 2. This equation is given, and we are going to solve these equations by factoring. At first, we should turn this one to a quadratic equation, which is in a standard form. To do that, first I'm going to take common denominator in the left side. Taking common denominator in the left side will result to this fraction, x plus 1, and on the numerator, 2x times x plus 1 plus 1 equals to 5 over 2. I took common denominator in the left side. Let me simplify the left side a little more. If we simplify the left side will turn to 2x squared plus 2x plus 1 over x plus 1 equals to 5 over 2. And some more simplification will result in, no need to simplification more, we should just do a cross multiplication. If you do a cross multiplication, you can have 4x squared plus 4x plus 2 equals to 5x plus 5. Now you can see a quadratic equation. And this quadratic equation is not in a standard form. Then try to turn it to the standard form, moving all terms to the left side. By moving all terms to the left side, you can have 4x squared minus x minus 3 equals 0. Thanks God, we got a standard quadratic equation. But in this quadratic equation, or the leading coefficient is not 1, then we are to do some changes on this quadratic equations. We should multiply all terms by 4. Multiplying all terms by 4 will result in 4x whole to the power of 2 minus, look at here guys, in here x has coefficient of negative 1. And in here I should write, at this point I should write negative 1 times 4x minus 12 equals 0. As you see, now I have a quadratic equation in which the quadratic term, I mean this term, is a perfect square term and it has a square root. Then, in the continuation, I can open two parentheses and put multiplication of these two parentheses equals 0. Inside each of these two parentheses, I can put a square root of this term. What is the square root? That is 4x. A 4x inside each of these two parentheses. This negative 12 stands for product and this negative 1 stands for sum. Then, since the product is negative, we are looking for two numbers. One of them is negative, the other is positive. Their product is negative 12 and their sum is negative 1. Since the sum is negative 1, this negative 1 should be written as sum of a negative number, the negative integer exactly before this one, negative 2, plus a positive number, 1. But multiplication of these two, I mean negative 2 and 1, doesn't make 12. This option is unacceptable. I'm going to the next option, negative 3, the negative integer before this one, plus 2. This option is not acceptable too. The next option, negative 4 plus 3. Fortunately, this one is acceptable. Then here we can put a negative 4 and here a positive 3. Then using zero product property, we can have 4x minus 4 equals 0 or 4x plus 3 equals 0. Solving the first linear equation will result in 4x equals to 4. Therefore, x will be 4 over 4 or 1. And solving the second one will result in 4 negative 3. And dividing both sides by 4 will result in x equals negative 3 over 4. And these are the solutions. Okay, this is our today lesson. I hope that would be useful for you. Thank you for watching and please study more. Have a nice time. Bye bye.